All right, Grandma, let's do this.
All right.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. Today, I have my best friend in the whole entire world. You've seen her on a few of our YouTube videos, and I'm super excited that she is here to sit down and talk with me. Grandma, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Are you excited to be here?
Yeah, maybe a little nervous too.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. We talk all the time. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. And she is going to talk us through her story about how you've kind of become the pioneer of sustainability in our family. And I just kind of want to get to know a little bit more about that journey. We've never really talked about that. We normally talk quilting, we talk sewing, you talk about your gardening and stuff like that. But we've never really talked about the story of how you got into quilting and sewing. And I know that sounds a little bit weird for people that are watching because you would think we know almost everything about each other. But I'm very interested because every time I come over to your house, there's always something new that you've repurposed. So can you kind of talk us through like how that all started? Because I think it's a very interesting story.
Well, I wanted a new dress for a maypole dance at school.
Okay.
I was 8 years old. I kept asking my dad for it. He kept saying, no, we can't do it. And finally, he reached into his closet, handed me a sewing machine, handed me some old blue gingham curtains, and said, make a dress. So I took the sewing machine, I took a dress out of my closet, some butcher paper from the kitchen, created a pattern, and made me my first dress. And I wore it to that maypole dance as proud as I'll get out.
So have you ever used any of those, that original pattern? Have you used something like it to this day when you're making things? I know you've made stuff for my cousins, like over and over again. I remember some of the dresses that you made for summer. So was it using kind of that same idea?
Yeah, it's just easier. Patterns are so expensive, or I thought they were expensive then. Now they're like $20, $15-$20 a pattern.
Right.
And even the dress I showed you last week made out of Grandpa's shirt, the top of that bodice is just a cutout pattern on some white paper from just white paper.
Right. That's cool. So when your dad gave you the sewing machine, was there any like intimidation behind it? Had you used the sewing machine before? Oh no. Okay.
I looked at it and thought, you got to be kidding me. You want me? I thought you were the meanest dad in the world. I just couldn't comprehend it. Now I look back at it and think, what a huge blessing. Yeah, he pushed me and he gave me this, and I thought, I'll never get this done. But I was so determined. Everybody in the class was getting new dresses.
Yeah.
I wanted a new dress.
Yeah.
So I took that determination and turned it into a dress.
You just had that you can make it mindset.
Yes.
So that mindset that you started with, I know that's followed you throughout your life. So what was like the next step in your I can make it journey?
I made most of my clothes through high school. Okay. My prom dresses, my wedding dress. My grandpa gave me an old wool blanket from World War II. And I wanted a poncho like that. It was very popular back then. Mm-hmm. And so I took that wool blanket and I made it like a big circle, cut the neck out, and put little arms in it and pockets, and made myself my own little poncho jacket. And then the leftover, I made a skirt to match it. So I had like this old little suit, which was, again, really big back then. In the 60s, there were so many different things you could do.
So, as growing up, I remember you talking about, what was the term that you used? It was a pillowcase dress. Is that right? Talk me through what that is. I know that sounds bad because I didn't look it up ever. But like, what is that, and how did it work in your repurposing days when you were using stuff that you had?
Well, right after I got out of high school, between high school and college that summer, I didn't have a sewing machine. And I wanted some summer clothes. And before pillowcase dresses were brought out and patterns were made for it and stuff, I took an old dress that was in my mom's closet she didn't want anymore. And I cut little arm-like things on it, and I made a seam across here and put a strand through and tied it here.
Okay.
So it wasn't a halter top, but it was just tied right here. and it was dress that went down.
Okay.
And I hand sewed it all.
Oh, wow.
And so it was great. It lasted for years.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, those kind of things, when you don't have a sewing machine, there are still things you can do.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they have a pattern called a pillowcase dress, and they make them a lot for donation for dresses over in Africa and things like that for children. But I made this for me to wear.
So those original pieces that you made like throughout high school, like the poncho and different things like that, you had always been using the sewing machine for that. And this was kind of your first, I need to do this by hand thing.
Right.
So you'd ever hand sewn before?
To put hems in things.
Okay.
But not a whole dress.
Not a whole dress. How long did that take? Do you remember? I know that was only like last week when you made it, but
yeah, like over 60. No. No, I don't remember. I just remembered that I really wanted this new dress.
Yeah.
I wanted something to wear. We were on a motorcycle and going back and forth to Tahoe, and I was working in Tahoe and staying at the camp, and I wanted something nice and cool.
Yeah. So you just
what I
made
did.
it. Yeah, you've always had that mentality that I'll just do it. I'll just figure it out. I'm going to make it happen. So what brought you into, so that you started really with clothes, but now I've seen you go further than that. You were on our channel a couple weeks ago doing washcloths, and you do different types of rugs and all sorts of different things like that. And you're always using either what you have in your stash or just repurposing different clothes and different things like that. So what took you from, I want to make clothes for myself and, for others in some standpoints, to I want to try and repurpose almost everything in my home to the best of my ability?
Well, I just like the creativity.
Yeah.
I like to be able to look at something and say, I know what I could do with that. And then just taking the next step and doing it. Sometimes you look at it, there are designs that came out beautifully, and I do them over and over and over again. There are other designs that I did, and, well, the garbage can wasn't close enough. So it's just a matter of not giving up.
Yeah.
Just keep trying and keep finding new things you can do. We were up in Alaska. The floors are cold.
Yeah.
Rugs are quite expensive up there. And I'm like,
expensive
okay,
anyway.
let's see what we can do. And I looked around, found a couple of patterns, and then played with different things and made myself some rugs.
And some of those things, I mean, I know majority of those things you still have to this day.
Yes.
And I find that some of the stuff that you repurpose and that you make and that you reuse lasts longer than when you go out and buy something new.
Yes.
Sometimes. Like when I've seen you buy different things, which isn't very common. She doesn't go to the store that often, folks.
Oh, like shopping.
But like I've seen you go out and buy a bath mat or something for the house. But it doesn't hold up near as long as that rug that you have in the front entryway that people walk over and over and over and over and over and over again, that you've thrown in the washer, taken out, dried, thrown in the washer. Grandpa put it in the wrong batch sometimes.
Yep.
Like but it's like the stuff that you hand make, I feel like lasts so long. So do you have any like ideas on why that happens?
Well, I think one is buying good fabric.
Yeah.
Or when you're repurposing something, make sure the fabric is a nice fabric, something that you can wash and dry and throw around. And I mean, I have rugs in the house that are over 14 years old.
Yeah.
When we moved into our new house, we bought some really pretty, mats to go by the shower. These nice, that I dress it up.
Yeah.
A new house. Well, 2 of them are gone. The third one's getting ready to be thrown away as soon as I finish the rug that's going to go in front of Grandpa's area in the bathroom, because my rug that's 14 years old is still doing great in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's certain fabrics. When I make my rugs, I like using batiks. I like using a little bit stronger woven fabric, a little bit better quality dyed fabric.
Yeah.
So that I know I can wash it and dry it and throw it around and roll it up when I'm moving and not worry about it.
Yeah. So I know what type of rugs you are referring to, because I go to your house practically all the time, but the folks don't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they go to your house too. I don't know. But what are these rugs called that we keep referring to?
Well, one of the ones I make is called a toothbrush rug.
Okay.
It comes from my grandma. She would take the old toothbrushes. In the old days, we had toothbrushes that actually had a hole in the end. Mm-hmm. And so when the toothbrush wore out, we would saw it off like a needle, make it point, and then with the hole in it is where we put the fabric through. And it's almost like a crochet thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned to do it. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And they're called toothbrush rugs.
Yeah. We carry the, or we used to, or we might still, I don't know, the patterns for those toothbrush rugs, those Aunt Philly ones. And then I remember when you saw them, I think it was at the Houston Quilt Show that time, you were like, oh my gosh, I used to make those, and you bought every pattern that they had. And you brought them over to Mom and I, so I thought that was kind of cool. We've veered off topic. This is what we do. We just chat. We've veered off topic a little bit, but that's okay. I want to go back to in the earlier days, like when my mom was a child.
Okay.
How were you able, because I don't know if everyone knows, but I have a lot of aunts and uncles. My grandma had a couple of kids.
Only 10.
Only 10. I know because I had I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago. They were talking about the cost of fabric and different things like that back in the day was much higher. Mm-hmm. And it was more of a luxury to have, different fabrics. And they didn't come in that many colors. And, I could go on and on. How were you able to, clothe everybody? And because my mom talks about how all of her sisters had the same dress. I have questions, Grandma. I need to know.
Well, again, if you go, say over to Goodwill or go to other places, you can find fabric that all matches.
Yeah.
I've done everything from sheets. One year, I found these sheets that had bunnies on the bottom of them. Mm-hmm. So I made their Easter dresses out of that. Okay. So with 7 girls, making dresses is far better, more affordable. It's
more economical, yeah.
Yeah, to make. And it's nothing to make a dress out of a sheet.
Yeah.
It's far more affordable than going and buying a yard or two of fabric.
I feel like you're going to have to teach us now. You put yourself on the spot. Mom's over there writing a list of things that Grandma needs to show us on the YouTube now. You got to be careful, Grandma, on the podcast.
But I love the girls to match for church.
Yeah.
So I did that. I made blessing gowns for the kids out of old wedding dresses. I would go to Goodwill or a secondhand clothing store, find a really beautiful wedding dress that had all the pretty silk and lace. I would buy it and then repurpose it and turn it into a beautiful blessing gown.
That's so cool. That's cool. Then what did you do for my uncles, for the boys?
I made them little suits for their blessing gowns.
Yeah.
I made shirts too. We used to make a lot of shirts, and I would make sure that they would match. All the T-shirts would match. And
okay.
I just liked everybody matching. They were all mine. I was proud of them. I wanted to show them off. So
when you all went out, you were like, "That's my crew right there. They have the matching outfits."
Yep. Hey, easier to find.
Fair. And I know they like to wander off, especially my mom. I know she was wandering off.
Nowadays, I just make sure even when Grandpa and I go places, we have the same color on so I could find him.
You have to tie a balloon to Grandpa when you walk around so you know exactly where he's at in the store. I saw that on TikTok. It reminded me of him. So I want to bounce back real quick because you were talking about using sheets that you had found with the bunnies on them and stuff like that. If I remember correctly, I was very young, but I remember Mom watching The Sound of Music. She really likes that movie, or that musical as well. And there was a point where she was making clothes out of curtains.
Yes.
And she just laughed, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, that's what your grandma used to do." So you're talking about sheets, but Grandma, did you ever pull the curtains down and make dresses out of curtains?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I mean, you could go and get curtains far more affordable than anything else.
Yeah.
And they make the cutest dresses. And they're good quality fabric.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
They're not too heavy?
No.
No?
I didn't think so.
Did you ask anybody else?
No.
That's just what they got? They got what they got?
They got what I could do.
So that brings me to another topic. I remember when I was a kid and I would spend summers with you, you always had a dedicated and designated sewing area, sewing room. This was your spot. It was quite large, and that's okay. That works. It's fine. And you always had quite a bit of fabric. but I always saw you going and pulling something out of the closet or using a sheet or pulling down a curtain or different things like that instead of using all of that fabric that you already had. Was there like just a different mindset that you needed to use that fabric for maybe something else and you were more focused on you reusing other things that you had?
When I look at things to make for us
Mm-hmm.
or around the house, I do a lot of repurposing.
Okay.
I just because that's the way it started, and I just enjoy that. I have
Okay.
fun with that. When I bought a lot of fabric, it was to make quilts
Okay.
because I wanted all these beautiful quilts for grandkids and children and weddings and baby showers and
Right.
stuff like that. So I would use newer fabric for that.
Okay.
But for around the house, it's just so much easier, especially because it's usually the color I like.
Fair. It's been hanging in the house
Yeah,
or it's
yeah.
part of the house. There was a reason it was there. So it was just,
Hey,
it worked with your color flow.
It made it easier when I went to move because I didn't
Half the
have to.
curtains were already down.
Yeah, I would just use them to make something that I would use and not worry about it because the next house I may want a different color.
Is it fair? I guess I never really thought about it that way, but that is a valid point. I like that. So, have you ever made quilts or baby blankets or different things like that out of repurposed material that you had around too? Like, have you ever made a quilt for yourself that was made out of different pieces that you've already had around instead of newer fabrics?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I don't have many more, but yeah, I've made probably a half a dozen different ones, especially when the kids were little.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the kids, I'm sure one of the kids would be able to tell you which one because I don't remember which one right now, had the coat of many colors. They needed a new coat. And so I went and found all the different fabrics I had in the house that we weren't using or that I have a box that I put all my stuff I'm going to repurpose in.
Yeah.
Went through the box and found fabrics that were a little heavier and made a coat of many colors for them to wear to school because we needed a new coat.
Okay.
So things like that. And then on the quilt, especially with flannel, if I got some old receiving blankets and the edges were worn out after years of going through different kids, then I would turn them into the burp rags. So it was easier to use something I already had that was kind of fraying and turned it into a new thing because the center of it was still nice.
Yeah.
So why not use it?
Yeah. So I've got to ask Mom who that was. I think I know which aunt or uncle that was, but I've got to ask. Mom doesn't know. She's looking at me like, I don't know. She'll think about it in a second. It'll come to her.
Yeah, I'm not remembering. I just remember the.
That's a good one, Grandma. You can say you don't remember. That's fine. You don't have to. You don't have to call out the child. It's fine. I will do it in post editing. It's fine. So you mentioned your burp rag.
Yes.
So you have a pattern that's available on our website, lindus.com. It's a free digital download on your baby burp rag. How did you come up with that design? Because I mean, it's the pattern, yet it's like so simple but so perfect. And you've made them since I can remember. I don't even remember when you started it. So did that come out of trying to be a little bit more sustainable instead of like having, all my aunts and uncles instead of going to the store and buying burp rags? And did that come from I need to make these so I can always have them ready?
Well, it started when I needed to figure out a way of making something for the babies. And everything you buy in the store was always too big.
Yeah.
And I have a little shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted it big enough for them, but I wanted it over my shoulder. So it was narrower there and then bigger in the back so I could use either side.
Mm-hmm.
And I started making them out of old blankets that I'd used on another child that needed to be repurposed and made the burp rags, and they worked great.
Yeah. I like the idea of that. Now, in the video that you did with us on the burp rag, and on your washcloth video, we've done so many together. I had to go through my head on which ones were which. You used your serger to go around the edges and then to close things off. When did you really get into wanting to have like multiple different machines? Because I know you started with your machine and then you didn't have one. You did everything hand. So what took you to like, I'm ready to go purchase my first sewing machine? Do you remember? I know that was probably I know it was probably a couple weeks ago, but still.
Probably about 50 years ago. I bought my first sewing machine. It was a Kenmore.
Okay.
Very proud of that machine.
Yeah.
I used it and used it and used it. Actually, I started out with a Singer treadle.
Okay.
And then when we got a little bit, then I bought the Kenmore.
Right.
And I used it for years. I did not get into using sergers until probably 70s,
Okay.
maybe 80s. It was late 70s, early 80s when I got my first serger.
Okay.
Let's see. No, I'm thinking.
Taking you down memory lane.
No, it was in the 70s because the T-shirts. That's why I got the serger.
Okay.
I wanted to make T-shirts for the boys,
Okay.
for my husband,
Yeah.
and I would make T-shirts. And that's why I got a serger.
Okay. And so those T-shirts, I'm assuming, were from materials that you already had.
Yes.
So that serger was just your way of, I know how T-shirts are made, but it's just to make some people might not. So it's to make a stronger stitch or?
I like the serger because it finishes the seam. So even on my dresses, I will serge and then I'll go back with the straight stitch.
Okay.
So it just finishes the seam so it doesn't ravel.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, on T-shirts, you have to serge them because of the stretch.
Yeah.
And it allows the ability for the seam to stretch without ripping.
Okay.
On my cotton and stuff, dresses, I still use the serger just to finish the seam off. I'll sew it with a straight, and then I go back and serge it just to have that seam finished off.
So for those that don't have a serger, like I don't have a serger, I just come and use yours. But for those that don't have them and they're looking at becoming a little bit more sustainable and getting into repurposing different fabrics and different things like that, do you have to have a serger to do that stuff, or can you just do a couple of different straight stitches around with maybe a tighter stitch and a looser stitch, or however you want to do it?
Right. No, you don't have to have a serger.
Okay.
Because I didn't have one, for years.
Right.
No, it just makes it
Just cleans off the edges.
cleans off the edges.
Yeah.
When I made the poncho,
Mm-hmm.
I did what they call a French seam, which I don't even know if people know what those are anymore.
I have no idea.
Which again shows no edging. It's
Okay.
the way it's put together. So there are different techniques out there that you can do if you would like no seam showing.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what you want.
Just depends on your preference and what you're doing.
Good old-fashioned straight stitch machine works great.
Yeah.
Having one that has zigzag on it becomes a time where you really would like some zigzag.
Yeah.
But I would say 80% of my stuff is straight stitch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I know you love your Juki straight stitch that you have.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's a good machine. I have one too. I like it a lot. I got it because of you. 'Cause you told me what to get. So outside of the dresses, the T-shirts, the poncho, the rugs, the baby burp cloth, I could keep going. You've talked to us about so much. I want to pull a little bit more. What else have you done? That was a bold. Do you hear how I come after you like that? What else have you done? Wow, I need to rethink my approach. What are some other things that you have created using reusing some materials that you've had?
Well, one of them is I used to take old sweaters.
Okay.
And especially if you go to the store and secondhand store and you find an old wool sweater.
Okay.
And it says dry clean only. Okay, you take it home. Sounds weird. You wash it and dry it. It felts it. And then I make slippers out of them.
Even though it says dry clean only.
Right.
You're going against the grain, Grandma.
I know, but it works.
But it works.
And it shrinks it all up and felts it, and you make these awesome slippers that you can wear that keep your feet warm and that are soft on the floor.
Yeah.
Another thing would be the blue jean tote bags. When the kids were in high school, they liked all kinds of different things that was in the baggy, big T-shirt time and stuff like that. And they liked the tote bags made of blue jeans and other fabrics. Flannel shirts. Flannel shirts are great. People love things made out of the flannel.
Really?
So we would remake old flannel shirts into new things. So that was kind of a thing, is that it wasn't really old. It just kind of either went out of style or people didn't want to wear it anymore. They didn't like it. They decided to change colors. Well, I like it.
Yeah.
I like going in and finding it. One time I made a quilt out of nothing but flannel shirts, all kinds of plaid flannel shirts, and just pieced it together.
Just
It
went
was
for
nothing
it.
fancy, just went with it. And okay, I don't like that color now. I like that color next to it. And just pieced together, and it was so soft.
That's cool. I love the creativity and the thought behind it. And you mentioned that earlier in the show that it really all started from creativity. And then it just grew into, again, that pioneer of sustainability in our family. So, Mom has this baby blanket that I believe you made for her when
Yes.
she was a baby.
Yeah.
And I know it's seen better days, but she talks to me about it all the time, and I know it's been put back together, and I feel like this is a story that I would like to hear the two of you talk about, because she's never really given me full context, and I feel like with you here, she'll be able to drag it out.
Okay.
So I want to swap chairs real quick with her, so
Okay.
you can just stay right there, and she's going to come in, and I want you to talk to her about this baby blanket.
Okay.
Can you do that for me?
Sure.
Okay. So, Mom, I know you weren't ready to talk about this. I know you probably didn't fix your hair, because I know you like fixing your hair before you get on camera. But I was wondering if you could talk about the baby blanket that Grandma made for you and give me a little bit more context, and all of our viewers a little bit more context on it, because I know it's seen some better days.
So, Corey, way to put me on the spot on this. So, yeah, so I do. I have a baby blanket that my mom made for me when I was obviously a baby, right? And it's kind of funny. It kind of goes around like this with the bottom, and then has a hood on it. And that's how she brought me home from the hospital, if I remember right, with it. So I've had it for years and years and years, and it became my security blanket. Like, I just had to have it with me everywhere I went. And you might be able to tell that story better.
Everywhere. It didn't matter where we went, what we were doing, you had to have your blanket with you.
Yeah, it was totally a definite security for me, for sure. And I just love that thing. I had to sleep with it. I had to walk with it. I had to drag it. Well, imagine doing that for all those years. And when I mean all those years, I meant I still have it today. But when I was, I want to say I was 19, 18 or 19, and I came to you, and you were in your sewing room, and I was like, this thing, I need to wash it, but if I wash it, it's going to fall totally apart. And but if I don't wash it, it's just really yuck, right? And you were like, well, what if I just make you a new one? And I'm like, and so you drew the template on it.
Still have the template.
You still have it. You made me a new one, which I still have that one. But I just didn't want it. Like, I tried it for like one day, and I'm like, I just can't. It's not the same. I need my original. So you just put on your mom hat, and you took an old sheet. It was an old sheet or an old shirt. I don't know. It just was stripes, and it was cotton. And you put it on the back, and, and sewed it to the back to secure the back, because the back is what was falling apart the most at this time. And then you put little yarn in there to kind of tie it down, some more ties, because it was basically a tied blanket. And then you handed it back and said, this is like basically the best I could do. And I was so happy, like, to have this back, and I felt like it was brought back to life. And even at 19, it was my security. I loved it. And even to this day, and it's kind of like a sad story, but I still have to have it with me. I don't necessarily take it with me when I travel as much anymore. I used to. For some reason, I thought it was my super blanket and it could save me from anything. But it's, it's still there in the bed. And I mean, the kids can tell you it is like a rag now. Like, it is so a rag. And there's every once in a while, I'll find a little piece of it just laying on the pillow or laying in the bed. But I still, to this day, at 50 years old, love this blanket that you made. So it's just something that reminds me of you, reminds me of how much you love me. And
Very much.
and I will always keep that dear to my heart.
You'll make me cry.
It's a very special part of my life, and that's one thing that I have from the beginning till now, 50 years later, that came from my mom. So
It shows the importance of memories.
Yeah.
And how things like that can really tie you together in a way. And when I repurpose things, sometimes it's that way. It's the memory of something.
Exactly. Like, memories are so important. A simple one blanket is a memory that I'll have for me forever, which are memories that anybody can make with certain things. Doesn't have to be monetary. It can just be a simple object that's been made out of love.
Y'all had me choked up behind the camera. I wasn't prepared for the emotional side of it. I wouldn't have called her on. She's going to get my eyes all puffy during the shoot. But thank you so much for Mom. Thank you for talking, and Grandma. Thank you for sharing that the story with us. That was a good one. I learned a little bit more about that. She calls it a rag, but her safety blanket. I think we've all got that one thing that keeps us going and that we like and that we love. So, Grandma, before we end today, is there anything else that you want to share with us? Other projects that you've done or different things like that you weren't able to that I didn't bring up, or things that you hadn't talked about yet?
Well, we used to also make wreaths.
Mm-hmm.
I would cut the fabric and then tie it to the wire and make wreaths from my front door.
Okay.
And again, that works great. Like after Christmas, people are getting rid of all kinds of stuff. So I buy all this beautiful Christmas fabric and save it, and then the next year make a wreath out of it.
Okay.
Some of the other things, hair bows.
Oh, okay.
They're easy, super easy to make hair bows. A little bit of elastic, leftover fabric. You got a beautiful hair bow to match whatever you're wearing.
Yeah.
Different things like that.
You just mentioned elastic. I remember when we went through the pandemic during COVID, and you went crazy making masks for
Yes.
people. You posted on the neighborhood page where you live, and the money that you were collecting from it was so you could buy the fabric to then donate. And people got behind that like crazy. One, they needed the masks during the pandemic. So you had a line of cars down the street. I remember this. It was on the page, folks. I wish I could have had the footage for it. But it was just like that amazing thing of how you were making that. And you found a pattern online for
Yes.
it. And you just went to town making that. I don't think I've ever heard your sewing machine run so much in one allotment of time. So you're making all sorts of things. It's amazing.
Well, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy the creativity.
Yeah.
I enjoy being able to share that. I think that the more I can share, the more chance I have of the other generations learning and being willing to try things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your generation and my great grandchildren are going to need to know these things. That times will get more difficult, and you're going to have to find new ways to still enjoy the things that you like and be able to use what you have, because it may be harder to get things.
Yeah.
And just think you'll be saving the planet some too, because the landfills won't be full of fabric. They won't,
It'll be in my closet and in all of our closets. I think that's one of the really cool things about, now I'm going to get teary-eyed, but I think that's one of the really cool things about having you as a grandmother. You've taught us so much that, like, a lot of my friends, golly, I'm going to start crying. This is not good, folks. A lot of my friends have no idea how to make stuff. And that's no dog on them, but they just didn't have someone to teach them. And like, I have an amazing mom who's done amazing things for my career, but like, I wasn't interested in quilting or sewing if it wasn't for you. So like, technically I wouldn't be sitting here today without you. And I think it's absolutely incredible that you continue to teach us every single day about all of these things that got you through when you were growing up, because you didn't have some of the luxuries that we're all afforded today. And I just want to say thank you so much for it. And I love you.
You're going to make me cry.
It wasn't where I was going with it, but it's the truth. It's using those techniques. It's because you brought this up. You're bringing the tears and the waterworks on this one. But it really is the truth. It's teaching the next generation. It's teaching people, not even the next generation even. Like, that's why I like to do so much online and on YouTube, is to let people know that you can do it, and you can make your own stuff, and you can teach yourself these new skills, and you can learn these new skills to continue growing.
Yeah. And it just makes it possible, again, to pass memories down.
Yeah.
The time that I get to spend with my kids and grandkids doing these things are extremely precious to me. Being able to build memories of things like that, sewing and quilting and cooking and canning and whatever we decide to do together.
Right.
For me personally, it's just another memory that I get to carry with me, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here today. I really, really love hanging out with you and spending time with you and learning from you. And I'm sure everyone else has enjoyed this as well. And you are welcome back on the podcast and on After Hours anytime. We love it when you're here. And really, we just appreciate your knowledge and your willingness to share all of your stuff with us. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I love you so much. Thank you all so much for watching and listening wherever you're listening to. Please make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you can stay up to date with everything going on here at the podcast. And I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.